They say, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. And for most, it sounds like caution, like weakness disguised as humility. But the truth? It's power, it's precision, it's calculated dominance in a world obsessed with noise. We live in a time where everyone has a voice, but very few have anything worth saying. Where everyone talks, but no one listens. Where silence is seen as weakness and noise is mistaken for wisdom. But real strength, real wisdom, it speaks less because it observes more. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you regretted staying silent? Now ask yourself, when was the last time you regretted saying too much? Exactly. Words are like weapons. Every one you throw is out of your control. Every one reveals something about your mind, your fears, your insecurities. But silence keeps your edge. The world can't fight what it can't read. You don't get ambushed if you don't broadcast your next move. You don't get misunderstood if you never hand them the script. Sometimes the smartest move is to say nothing, to sit still, to let your absence be louder than their presence. You see, people confuse intelligence with interruption. They think dominance is about being the loudest in the room. But the ones who actually control the room, they're watching, measuring, speaking only when the silence is heavy enough to break. Because when a man speaks rarely, his voice becomes priceless. The world leans in. Not because he's loud, but because his silence was sacred long before his words were spoken. In war, the most dangerous soldier isn't the one shouting orders. It's the one who moves without being seen, who waits for the right moment, who says nothing until it's already too late for the enemy to respond. Your silence is strategy. It's not submission. It's not cowardice, it's a choice, and choice is power. The fool speaks out of impulse, the wise man pauses, calculates, acts with force. Look around. People throw their thoughts online before they even form them. They jump into arguments they weren't invited to. They fight for the spotlight even if they have nothing to offer. Why? Because silence is uncomfortable to the insecure. If they're not talking, they feel invisible. If they're not heard, they feel irrelevant. If they're not loud, they think they don't exist. But the real ones, they know better. They've tasted the power of restraint. They've felt the strength that comes from not engaging every fight. They've seen the fear in people's eyes when a calm man chooses silence over chaos. There's a myth out there that if you don't speak up, you'll be forgotten. But here's the truth. If your silence has weight, they'll remember you longer than the ones who never stopped talking. Because silence isn't absence. It's pressure. It's tension. It's the space between the inhale and the exhale. And when that silence breaks, it hits with the force of a storm. You ever notice what happens in a room when the quiet one starts to speak? The room shifts. Heads turn. Suddenly, every word has gravity. Not because his voice is louder, but because his voice isn't wasted. He doesn't talk to fill silence. He talks to change the atmosphere. That's the kind of presence you build when you stop trying to prove yourself and start moving like someone who already knows. They may call you arrogant, distant, cold, but what they're really saying is, I don't know how to read you. I don't know how to control you. I can't figure you out. And that unsettles people. They're not scared of you because you're aggressive. They're scared of you because you're unreadable. You don't give them fuel, you don't react, you don't dance for their approval. And that silence, it drives them insane. Because silence demands they confront themselves. You want to know what real confidence looks like? It's not posting every win. It's not clapping back at every critic. It's not telling everyone your plan. It's moving in silence, building in the shadows, stacking power brick by brick, until one day you show up and the world realizes you weren't sleeping. You were sharpening. Think about lions. They don't roar before the hunt. They stalk in silence, low, calm, focused. And when they strike, it's over before you even hear the growl. You want to be feared? Don't roar. Wait. Let your silence be misunderstood. Let your restraint be mistaken for weakness. And then, when the time is right, let your power speak. Because by then, it's too late for them to prepare. Most people, they can't stand the quiet. They fill the void with words, opinions, validation-seeking nonsense. Because without that noise, they have to sit with themselves. And they don't like what they find. But you're different. You've learned to sit in stillness, to observe, to study, to watch the world unravel itself while you remain unmoved. That's power. Not because you're passive, but because you're dangerous on your terms. So let them think you're a fool. Let them underestimate you. Let them write you off. Because while they talk, you're training. While they mock, you're mastering. While they post, you're planning. And when it's time to speak, when it's time to rise, they won't be ready. Because they never saw you coming. Remember this, words can lie, volume can distract, but silence is always honest. Silence reveals what noise conceals. And if used right, it becomes your most dangerous weapon. So if they say you're quiet, smile. If they say you never speak up, let them. Because you know what they don't, that the fool speaks to be heard, but the wise man stays silent to be remembered.